Have you ever felt like you're just drowning in advice? Like one person tells you, go left. Another says, no, right. And you're left wondering what actual wisdom even looks like anymore. It's something we all deal with, right? Trying to make sense of all these opinions. So today we're doing a deep dive into, well, a very specific take on human thinking versus what our source material calls divine wisdom. And we're kicking off with this really potent quote from 1 Corinthians chapter 3. Jehovah knows that the reasonings of the wise men are futile.
Yeah, that's the heart of it, isn't it? Our mission here really is to unpack what that actually means, in the context of the text we're looking at. We want to explore how this whole idea plays out historically and how it affects us today. And maybe most importantly, what it means for you when you're trying to sort through information, weigh advice, and just, make decisions. We'll look at why, from the specific viewpoint, human reasoning can sometimes fall short and what specific pitfalls the text warns about.
Okay, so that quote, reasonings of the wise men are futile. That's pretty strong stuff. What exactly does the source say about why? Why futile? Is it just saying that human ideas are often wrong, or is there something deeper going on?
Well, what's interesting is the text argues that if you look at things only from a human angle, you risk, and this is the key phrase, leaving out Jehovah and his standards. And just for clarity, Jehovah is the personal name for God used in the Hebrew scriptures, which is central to the perspective in our source material. So see, it's not just that human ideas might be mistaken. The core issue from this viewpoint is that human reasoning on its own might ignore or even kind of push against a higher standard. The source says the wisdom of this world, some popular thinking, it doesn't just differ, it actively appeals to what it calls fleshly desires.
Fleshly desires, so like basic human wants and inclinations.
Exactly. Those natural impulses that, can sometimes clash with spiritual ideas or a higher moral code. Without that anchor, that divine standard, even really logical human thinking can end up, aimless or self-serving. And that's where the futility comes in, according to this text.
Okay, that makes sense, the idea of needing an anchor. Does the source give any historical examples? Like, where did this actually play out?
It does, yeah. And this is where it gets pretty concrete. The text points to two early Christian groups. In Pergamum and Thyatira, these were, ancient cities in what's now Turkey, with active Christian congregations back then. And the material says that some people in those congregations started adopting idolatrous and immoral views that were just, common in those cities.
Idolatrous and immoral, like what specifically?
It specifically mentions tolerating sexual immorality within the congregations. And this wasn't seen as a minor thing. The text highlights that Jesus, through the messages in Revelation, sent strong counsel to those groups.
Wow. Okay, so direct warnings.
Right. Recorded right there in Revelation chapters 2 and 14 and 2 and 20. It's presented as a clear historical case where, worldly wisdom, the popular ideas of the time, crept in and really threatened the core beliefs of those communities.
That's quite a stark picture from Pergamum and Thyatira. But, it's easy to think, that was then. Does the source suggest we're dealing with similar kinds of things today? Maybe in different clothes, so to speak.
That's the crucial connection, isn't it? The material definitely argues that, yes, we still face this pressure to adopt wrong viewpoints. It breaks it down into sort of two main kinds of pressure. First, there's the external stuff. This, it says, can come from family members and acquaintances, people close to us. They might appeal to our emotions, try to get us to compromise.
How so? What kind of things might they say?
Well, the text gives examples like maybe suggesting that giving in to our desires does not matter, or arguing that, the Bible's moral standards are outdated, that kind of thing. Then second, there's the internal side, the temptation from within.
Okay, so not just outside pressure.
Right. The source notes that sometimes a person might reason that the direction Jehovah gives us is not sufficient, like feeling it's not enough or it doesn't quite fit our situation. And really importantly, it mentions the temptation to go beyond the things that are written, referencing 1 Corinthians 4.6. That implies this tendency we can have to think maybe we know better or we need to add our own spin to the guidance we're given.
External pressure from others,
Yeah.
Internal temptation to think we know best. So, okay, let's bring this home. Why should someone listening right now care about this particular deep dive? How does understanding this view on human reasoning help you navigate, the flood of information and influences out there?
Well, think about it. We live in an age of just constant information, right? Experts, opinions, advice coming from everywhere, often conflicting. This discussion gives you a specific lens, a framework from the source's perspective. It suggests that by recognizing the potential futility, as the text calls it, of purely human reasoning, especially when it leaves out that divine standard, you gain a tool to evaluate the advice you get. Is it just appealing to those fleshly desires we talked about?
So checking is foundation, essentially.
Exactly. Does it align with a different, maybe higher set of standards? It's not about, dismissing all human thinking outright. Not at all. It's more about being discerning, asking, what's the anchor for this piece of wisdom? Where is it ultimately leading? So yeah, to kind of wrap up our main points, what we've explored today is this perspective that draws a really sharp line between human reasoning operating on its own and a divine standard. The core idea from this source is that human wisdom, when it disconnects from that standard, risks becoming futile, potentially just serving our baser inclinations. We saw the historical examples in Pergamum and Thyatira.
Right, where compromise crept in.
Precisely. And the text argues we face similar things today, pressure from others, and that internal pull to maybe compromise or go beyond the guidance provided. The emphasis, really, from this document's view is on being watchful, guarding against worldly ways of thinking that might lead us off track.
So here's something to think about as we finish up. Given what we've discussed from this perspective, how might you take a closer look at the wisdom of this world that you encounter every day? And perhaps what assumptions are you maybe making without even realizing it about what truly counts as wisdom in your own life?